Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, I sure appreciate your support, guys. This is a second segment or second video to a two-part series here, if you will, talking about stand locations, early season, and going into the pre-rut. So I highly encourage you, if you're here and you haven't seen the first video, go back and watch the first one. It would make a lot of sense here. We're going to talk, guys. In the first video, we talked about that, early season situation. What most folks do, how to make things a little bit better, and why that mindset, right, needs to change going into what we refer to as the pre-rut. Notice I don't have up here, guys, I like to touch on this. Notice I don't have the end of October labeled. I'm just labeling it the pre-rut because no matter where you're at in the country, guys, these strategies can work. And the reason I'm touching on this, guys, sad but very true, and like I said, I get it. There's some really legitimate arguments, I guess you could say, about food plot hunting, right? But I think that the food plot hunting, guys, it's not the food plot itself, it's how we are going about hunting it that takes from our hunt or can be detrimental to a property. So I really think that a lot of folks, like we said in the first video, have this favorite stand syndrome, and we just keep going to them early season locations, going right into the pre-rut, no matter where you're at in the country, whether that's the end of October or the end of November, and we just keep hunting that location, hoping and praying that this is going to work, this is going to happen, right? There's a couple things though, guys, that you really need to focus on when you should be able to switch the light bulb goes off, as I say, right? You should be able to switch that location from early season inline hunt mentality and understand that you're hunting a different deer. You're hunting a different mindset, if you will, during the pre-rut. So if you have the favorite stand syndrome, right? I'm not saying that you can't hunt that stand, but what I'm saying is you need to make sure early season, if you're a private landowner, right? You need to make sure that your early season work is set up and some of this habitat manipulation and or creations are set up. So maybe that stand's good early season and that stand just can be hunted and maybe gets better, right, going through the pre-rut. Then it's about making sure you're not hunting it too much and stuff like that. Sad part of this is, guys, is I just see, folks, not knowing. I think there's a lot of it, right? I see a lot of folks just hunting this other situation that we had, and I'll just touch on this real quick, right? This food plot to bed to food situation, pardon the illustration here, but bedding and food plot, and what happens is we're just hunting here or we're hunting here, and we're just sitting at the end of the rainbow, if you will, like I talked, right? The pot of gold, and you're just hoping and praying that that buck comes there to feed, like I said. Then what happens is the architecture isn't right. He's in the field, you can't kill him. You're hunting a food plot instead of a shot plot. The list goes on and on. What we want to do, guys, is we want to know this inline movement, but inline movement is not a good pre-rut strategy. It's really not, guys. And the reason for that is if you have the chance, like we talked, right, to have multiple bedding opportunities, you've just took this stand location and made it into a better situation where you can hunt it in a pre-rut and a rut. And the reason for that is, guys, like I said, the mindset of these bucks start changing, right? And they're going into more of a cruise phase. To be honest with you guys, I would rather hunt the pre-rut than the rut. And the reason for that is, depending on where you're at in the country, the rut, depending on your buck to doe ratios and stuff, right, you can lose a lot of days waiting for a buck to come off these does as far as being on this lockdown. Now, there's a part of the lockdown that we're going to talk about that I don't think a lot of folks understand. But here we're going to talk about, there's just a lot of that seek phase, if you will, right? This pre-rut, guys, they are so vulnerable and they make a lot of mistakes. So first and foremost, before we start this, I highly encourage you to go back on last year's data on a buck on the farm or near this location. Guys, really make sure that if he was there last year on, let's just say, my favorite date, right? October, here in the Midwest, October 27th. If he was on the farm October 27th last year and daylighted, you have to look at the good weather day that ties to the nearest date. So maybe it's the 25th this year, maybe it's the 28th, whatever the case is, or maybe it is the 27th. If he was on the farm last year and daylighted, guys, he will be on the farm again this year. And you just hope and pray that the weather works with you so he daylights. So keep that in mind, first and foremost, right? Making this situation better, right? So we're in a situation now that we've got out of here and we went into a little better situation where we've got 2 bedding locations, and now we start being able to deem this a little more, buck bedding and doe bedding, right? And the reason I say that, like I touched on in the other video, the reason I say that, guys, is if you just have this and you don't have this, if this is your nearest great habitat, hinge cuts or canopy release or whatever that you've done, the does are probably going to settle back into that 100 or 200 yards. They're going to seek the first correct habitat, right? If that's 400 yards, they're going to silt back in there, and that's how far they're going to go. Guys, on a private land opportunity, you can build these does and place them out here in that first 100-yard rim of that food source, where they want to be. That opens the door for this other location here to work for you. So, like I said, we're all trained to hunt inline movement, bedding to food. But what I highly encourage you to do, guys, is create both of these, because you do not need to be in front of these does as a long linear movement. So let me refresh that. You don't need to be in here between bedding and food during the pre-rut. You want to be behind these does, or have this situation, we're talking food plot, food plot hunting or shot plot hunting strategies, right? Kind of the same theory when we go into the timber without the food, which is better. But what you're doing, guys, is you're sucking these does out here to the food plot so you can get between, or have a potential to have these bucks bedded back here. So, like I said, instead of putting the feeder right here, this representation of green F means food plot, a lot of folks are putting the feeder right here, right? And we're hunting that feeder, and the bucks can't get downwind of this right? They can't get downwind of it to feel secure. And the more the season goes on, guys, this feeder just keeps dwindling away. The power of that feeder just keeps dwindling away, having a chance to shoot that buck over that feeder. So this is what I encourage you to do. Put the feeder over here, right? Yes, you can't shoot it, right? You're not going to be able to shoot it. I'm talking maybe it's an 80 yards, 70 yards, 100 yards away. Move that feeder to opposite of here. So if your food's down here, if this is north and this is all set up to the east, then you flip the script. This situation, if this is west, because of these dominant westerly winds, or a lot more westerly winds, in a lot of the country, if you can set this up, guys, you can hunt this on that northwest west movement, and preferably northwest, keep it away from the feeder. But you can hunt this, guys, on them winds, and you're going to be able to hunt it more if that westerly twist of a wind is kind of the common thing in your area. By doing this, guys, is you're dragging this movement past. So if you do get lucky, and he does have a feed mindset, and he's just not quite there yet in the pre-rut, you're going to be able to have him cruise through this food plot architecture, cruise through here, hit this licking branch, right? Blocker, licking branch on the end, still getting a little bit of power through a licking branch, right? Having him use a scrape this time of the year and the feeder. So you got the best of both worlds if he's not cruising, right? Keep this in mind, guys. That buck is going to go where the does were first before he goes where the does are at now. So in other words, let me clarify that. If he comes into here early season You're probably got a good chance of him cruising through the food plot, eating, maybe hits the licking branch, and goes to the feeder. You advance this 2 weeks into the pre-rut, 2 or 3 weeks into the pre-rut from the last video. Now his mind goes to cruising. He's going to want to scent check where those does were, not where they're at now. If you see a buck this time of the year go into a food plot, right, during the pre-rut, go into a food plot and he's scent checking does, he's bouncing does around, 95% chance, guys, that buck has already checked the doe bedding area and he knows somebody was close to being, one of those does was close to being in heat. That's why he's out there bouncing does around that field to find out which one she is. So if you hunt with that mentality, what that tells you is he's already been to the bedding area and then he's out here. Sadly, a lot of times that's back here, right? You want to move that up here. If he does want to cruise that and scent check that first, that's happening in front of you and you're on the downwind side of it. So that's a huge piece of the puzzle. How you make this whole thing come together before the season starts, guys, I highly recommend, if you're able, if your terrain allows, if the land allows, if you own this and you can manipulate this, guys, I highly recommend doing 2 things. One, if this is the topic of the video here, series, right? Food plot hunting. If it's only food plot mentality at all, this is where most folks go wrong, is they're understanding the mulch trail, the transition feature. Most folks do this, right? They're taking a mulcher and going from this bedding, making this mulch trail right into this food plot and right out the other side. You're gaining, right? Your thought process is there. The problem with that is, guys, this food plot better be secure and it better be long and linear and only 40 yards wide, let's say, for that to work in your favor. And the reason is, guys, he has to scent check this. So if he comes in, you better hope this blocker in here is good, that he scent checks. This is why you're seeing all these scrapes on the edge of the fields, right? Is because he's scent checking the downwind side of that. It could work if your blocker is strong enough, right? But what I highly encourage you to do, guys, is this. If this food plot strategy, this mindset is what you want to hunt, I encourage you to do this. Make one of those trails from that bedding that goes out to food. So you have that covered if that happens. This is where you bring this whole thing in. About 75 yards, 50 yards off from here, guys, halfway between your buck bedding and your food. Take the mulcher. So maybe it's a little more than half. Maybe it's 25, 50 yards out here before it hits the food plot. You want to take the mulcher, guys, and you want to make this trail about 30 feet, 20 to 30 feet off the food plot. And you want to bring this mulch trail off this intersection, and you want to be able to let him cruise past this location, these does. Now, if we weren't on food plot in the timber, we were going to be cruising him past here. We're going to be hunting without the food. But if we're talking food plot mentality, put this blocker in here and maybe even dirty this part of the doe bedding up so much that he can't get through the center. So you're actually making doe bedding cubicle 1 and 2. You're not boxing them in, right? They have all these outs that they can get out if predation comes, right? But what you're doing is you're cruising him past this, and right about before he gets out here, he can't get through, and now he's got to come out here to this licking branch, and you're going to cruise him right back up in, and you're going to allow him to move all the way past this location, maybe even creating another blocker out here, right? So he's got to go out to the feeder and then back in. You're allowing him to scent check the does. So you're getting the best of both worlds. You're using the food plot. You're driving him out here using the blocker. You're driving him out here to a location that he has to, be a little risky. He's got to come out here to use this licking branch, which all these other does are doing. But he can also scent check, because here's the thing, guys. I find most of the time these scrapes that you're finding out here that you're hunting from this stand location, if you can shoot them. A lot of times these food plots are too big and you can't shoot them, but they're made at dark, right? They're not a piece of the daylight movement. Now, if you let him cruise it and he feels secure, what this does, right? This creates licking branch here, stand location here, another stand opportunity inside here. So now you've got two options. If he's not getting here, you're still using the food plot and the feeder, but you've also created another intersection. Guys, my goal is for you to be able to not have an intersection that you can't hunt. That's first and foremost. Don't just make willy-nilly intersections. Make that intersection so you can hunt. Then you have an opportunity, pre-rut guys, you have another stand maybe back here, right? That you're pushing in a little bit further as the season progresses. As you start getting into that first week of November, now we're sliding back here even further, right? So if you're food plot oriented and food plot oriented only, and it's the favorite stand syndrome, make sure that that stand doesn't lose power from just being inline. An inline hunt during the pre-rut and the rut is not a powerful hunt at that time. Where it could be here, you could get lucky in the early season. As the season progresses, it starts to taper off. This is why most food plot stands go from a 2% opportunity, and they raise up during the early season. Maybe you can say there's some feeding movement to it, right? Some feeding power movement. What happens is, guys, this goes back in the tank where you're hoping, because there's deer out there, there's does out there, and that feeder's involved or that food plot's involved, you're hoping that it's an 80 to 90% chance. And sadly, this is what's happened. Your 2% stand, early season and pre-rut and rut, early season, this is what's happened, right? It's ramped up, it's went back down, and it just plateaus off. This situation, guys, now if you add gun hunts in here and you can see this from afar, maybe this ramps back up again. The best time to hunt these bucks during the pre-rut and the rut is not being taken advantage of in these normal situations, just sitting on the edge of food plots. There's so much that you can do just by a little tweaking to make that stand location work for you and make that favorite stand syndrome actually pay off. You just have to use a little thought process. Guys, we design a lot of these on some of the farms, and not every farm has this potential, but if you do, just remember, just by sliding him off from here 20 to 30 feet and letting him cruise by here and then forcing him, if you are on the food plot, forcing him past here. If you're not on the food plot, guys, we don't bring him out into the food plot. We just let him cruise past, and we're harvesting him over here or at this stand location, right? This whole situation goes away, and he's just cruising through. It's a very, very powerful piece of the puzzle, sadly, that is extremely overlooked going into the pre-rut. I hope this helps, guys. If you got some time before the pre-rut to make a little tweak as far as the stand location, sadly, you probably don't have a lot of time. I wouldn't recommend going in there starting the chainsaws right now to make this better. But really, I really encourage you to think long-term when your mind is just wrapped around food plot hunting only. It's not that you can't hunt a food plot. There's just a lot of pieces of the puzzle, I feel, that sadly get folks into trouble hunting food plots because we're all trained to hunt between bedding and food, and we're not understanding the flow of not just hunting an inline hunt throughout the entire whitetail season. Thanks, guys.